Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the community meeting, official community meeting for the 1415 5th Street project. My name is Dave Rand with the firm Armbruster Goldsmith Delvac, representing the applicant tonight, NMS Properties. With us from NMS, we have a number of representatives led by Scott Walter and Michael Falonis of Michael Falonis Architecture, who will be presenting the design and architecture of the project. We're going to go through a few things this evening. We're going to start with a little overview of the project and a rundown of the community benefits that we will provide with development of the project. Michael will give an architectural presentation and walk you through the design. And the balance of the time we'll reserve for questions and answers, and we can have a discussion about the proposed project. So to start, we'll give you an overview of the downtown area. Here is the property right here at 1415 5th Street. Hi, come on in. We've highlighted a few key features of the downtown to give you some perspective. Here we have Tongva Park and, of course, the Expo Station, constructed at 4th and to be constructed at 4th and Colorado. And our site is within close proximity to the station, within a quarter mile or a 5-minute walk of that Expo Station. Here's an overview of the site. We have surface parking in the back. The site's currently improved with a 2-story building, some ground floor retail uses, and a second level of office space. The site in total is 15,000 square feet. Our location is we're on 5th Street between Santa Monica and Broadway. And the program is 60 rental housing units. And here you see our unit mix breakdown. The project includes 12 studio units, 31 bedrooms, 12 2-bedrooms, and 6 3-bedrooms. So a number of larger size units, including 3-bedroom, potentially family occupied units. 7,500 square feet of ground floor commercial will comprise the bottom ground floor of the building. That'll be probably a combination of retail and restaurant uses. And the project includes 159 total parking spaces. Some folks think there's a parking shortage in downtown. The 159 spaces exceeds the code requirements, so we believe there will be no parking impacts or spillover parking effects after this project is constructed. In February of last year, the City Council, in recognition that there were a lot of development agreement projects in the pipeline, established some priority criteria for how those projects should be processed. And for housing projects, there were 2 criteria established for projects that should receive priority processing. The first is unit mix. The council encouraged priority projects to include more 2- and 3-bedroom units. And the second is affordable housing. So we're pleased to say that this project was constructed with those policy directions in mind and actually hits 2 of the priority categories as opposed to just 1. So the project includes no more than 20% studios, half the units are 1-bedrooms, 20% of the units is 2-bedrooms, and 10% are 3-bedrooms. In addition, affordable housing is a key component of the project and a key community benefit provided by the project.
Could you turn the lights down a little bit so we can see the screen better?
Sure, absolutely. Better? So here we have 12 units that will be deed restricted for affordable households. 15% of those will be reserved for the lowest level of affordability for very low income households. Hello, welcome. And 5% of the units will be moderate units, and those will actually be 3-bedroom. So this is a rare project that will provide deed-restricted family rental units in the downtown for a total of 20% of the overall project mix. The project is a Tier 3 project which requires approval of a development agreement. And to give you a little context for this, the Luce established a tiered system for development through much of the city. First tier would be a ministerial by right. Tier 2, allowing a little more development rights, would be in theory done by a development review permit, somewhat more streamlined than a development agreement, and would include some community benefits. And then the highest level is Tier 3, which would include greater community benefits and more development rights. The Luce did not establish specific parameters for tiered development in the Luce itself. It deferred to the adoption of the future downtown specific plan, which the city is currently working on. They haven't adopted a plan yet, but the city staff has circulated draft standards, and we are, for this site, find ourselves within the core neighborhood transition sub-area of the draft downtown specific plan. And at a tier 3 level, we are consistent with the standards of 76 feet in height and 3.5 feet FAR, which is essentially the buildable area potential of the project. And to give you a sense of scale and what that means, the draft standards for tier 1 would be 32 to 39 feet in height and 2.25 FAR. That would be ministerial or by right. The draft standard for tier 2 would be 60 feet in height and 3.5 FAR, which is actually exactly what the tier 3 standard is. And we're tier 3, allowing a little more height at 76 feet, but the same FAR as tier 2 of 3.5. So it's actually a better project, and then it's not as bulky, but it is a little higher, so we're allowed to do more interesting things that Michael will talk about in terms of open space and things of that nature. So to get to the FAR, it's a calculation. You calculate the size of the lot and divide that by the total square footage of the project. So we're about 52,000 square feet, divided by 15,000 equates to a 3.46 FAR within the 3.5 standard that I described. A little more on affordable housing. The city has its affordable housing production program requirements, and this project would be required to provide 6 units per those standards, and the 6 units above that are considered community benefit units. Another key community benefit is sustainability. The project is proposing to be equivalent of the LEED Gold sustainability standard, which requires a number of sustainability features to be included in the project. And Michael Falonis will discuss this, but the project includes a number of interesting features like a potentially community garden on the top of the roof, a creative use of ground floor open space that allows more pedestrian activity and public space on the ground level, larger sidewalks along 5th Street, again, to improve the public realm, consistent with the draft downtown specific plan standards that are being circulated. We'll also be subject to a strict transportation demand management program. The idea behind this is to reduce vehicle miles traveled and vehicular trips that will be produced by the project and help improve traffic in the downtown area. One of the mechanisms by which that goal will be achieved is unbundling the parking. The idea here is to sever the parking spaces from the rental units and provide incentives like transit passes for residents who will opt not to take a parking space. So that additional expense will disincentivize some folks to take parking and obviously encourage them to use alternate modes of transportation, bike and walk. The project will, and the applicant will target its marketing for a period to downtown employers, and downtown businesses. And the idea behind this is to capture people who are working in Santa Monica and get them to live here, thus reducing the jobs housing imbalance and reducing car trips and traffic congestion in the general area. In addition, we're going to propose what's called an AVR, an average vehicle ridership target of 2.0. What that essentially means is the commercial component of the project, the restaurant workers and retail workers, will be required to have 1 car for every 2 employees. So in those tenant leases, those employees are going to be obligated to use carpooling, rideshare, van share, what have you, such that not everybody can drive, not everyone will be bringing a car into the downtown streets. Bicycle amenities and parking is a key feature of the project. The project includes 133 bicycle spaces, which is about 2 per unit, which we believe is a very high and aggressive standard, in addition to a number of other amenities like a bicycle repair station, on-site showers and changing rooms, and a designated area on the site for the city's future bike sharing program when that gets up and running. Now, I want to walk you through a little bit of the downtown and give you a sense of some of the other development that is being proposed or that's under construction within the general vicinity of the site in our downtown. And I think the takeaway at the end of that is that the proposed project is consistent in terms of size and scale with some of the other development being complicated and underway. So here's our site, and a nearby site under construction at 525 Broadway, another mixed-use project, includes an FAR of 3.7, so that's larger in terms of scale size, 125 units, more density at 60 feet in height. There are 2 projects at 7th and Arizona under construction, both with about 50 units, 3.5 FAR on one and 3.0 FAR on the other. They're right next door to each other. Here's a project on 2nd Street. This is somewhat away from our site, closer to the beach, but it's a 3.1 FAR, 53 units, 45 feet in height. The standards along Ocean Avenue where that is proposed are more restrictive than on 5th Street where this project is going to be built. 401 Broadway, very nearby over here. Small lot project, but 3.7 FAR and 56 units, 56 feet in height. And also close by on 5th and Colorado are the two OTO hotels that are currently under consideration. The Planning Commission reviewed these the other night. Those projects are proposed at 74 feet and 75 feet and 3.5 FAR, 136 units on one, and then the other side of 5th and Colorado would have 143 guest rooms. 501 Broadway, also close by at 5th and Broadway, 3.5 FAR and 76 feet in height, very similar in terms of scale, height to this proposed project. And on Lincoln Boulevard, there's a number of development projects that are in the pipeline. This is the Denny's site that would be a 2.75 FAR, 98 units and 60 feet in height. That's consistent with the standards, the special standards in the loose for Lincoln Boulevard. In addition, 1601 Lincoln, this is the Norm site, 100 units, 57 feet in height. And that gives you a sense of sort of what's happening in terms of the downtown development pipeline. Now I'd like to turn it over to the project architect, Mr. Michael Falonis. And Michael will also talk about one community benefit, which I know at least a few of you are interested in that I did not discuss, and that's the project will be proposing $50,000 to the Conservancy to revitalize the Shotgun House for a future resource center for the Conservancy. The project doesn't have any connection to historical uses. There's no historical resource on the site. The existing building is not on the survey, and so we believe this is the first applicant and first project that is proposing voluntary community benefit dollars for historic preservation that had no other connection to historic uses. And the project thinks that's important because historic preservation, like affordable housing and transportation demand management and sustainability, is a community benefit identified in the loose. So we believe this project hits every single one of the loose community benefit categories, and we think that's something good for the city and good for the community. So with that, I'll hand it over to Michael.
Thank you. Michael Falonis, I'm the project architect. We really started off this project by trying to develop an attitude about it, a more creative and permeable attitude about how this building could relate better to the street, relate better to pedestrians, and vice versa, and the tenants being able to connect with people on the street. So what we did was we took an idea that, or an attitude or a condition that the city has and likes to see is this kind of wedding cake appearance of buildings. So you go up so many feet and you step back so many feet, and up so many feet and you step back again. But the fact is that as we look at it as a real urban design issue, it really doesn't benefit people at the street level, because the facade could still come out as far as it could possibly come out at the street level, at the sidewalk level, and doesn't really provide any real visual or opportunities for pedestrians. And the city, I was on the architectural review board for 7.5 years, and one of the criteria that we always looked at in these projects and all kinds of projects was pedestrian orientation. So what does it feel like for a pedestrian at the ground level? So what we did was we decided that there was as a result of this massing study, what we did was we looked at the volume, the cubic footage of, if I lose anybody, just let me know and I'll try to explain it. It's important. This is an important point, I think, for you to understand. So what we did was we took this required volume, and and what you see on the right, 75,600 cubic feet of void, if that makes sense. And that's what the city was looking at in terms of this wedding cake or this step back appearance of the building at the upper levels. So we took that volume, that negative volume, and we said, where could we put it in the building that would make more sense, both for tenants that live there and the quality of life that we create as architects, and the ground level space for pedestrians and for commercial and retail shops. And so what we did was we developed a void, a very large void at the base of the building, which is about 35 feet tall. It's about 40 feet wide, and it's very deep, which you'll see, and it creates a plaza at the ground level. We also took the volume and we said, is it possible to break the facade up in another way? And so we punctured a large 2-story hole that's about 30 feet wide in the middle of the building. And so if you take a look at the image on the left, this would be a sort of typical ground level commercial space. And what we did was we carved out this area, this volume on the right. We have a lobby down there for the residents above, and we've actually carved this out. What you end up with is literally more storefront because of the perpendicular glass that runs from the street back, and then eventually works its way over to the lobby. So we're creating a larger private, public plaza at the ground level. And then you can see the large 2-story hole in the building, which is now a public space for residents that live there. So now there's a way of visually connecting residents who are using this space with the street and the pedestrians on the street level with occupants of the building. It also helps us with the quality of light and ventilation in the building. And every single unit in this project has an opportunity for natural ventilation from two ends of their unit. So we're getting natural flow through ventilation, which will potentially reduce the need for air conditioning in the summer. Our office is a few blocks away, and we have windows on either side of the building. We have no air conditioning, but we just simply take advantage of the breezes coming off the ocean. And so you can see here the large volume. The building becomes much more permeable than the typical kind of apartment of this size and scale. These fins that you see around the window openings are to help us with solar orientation. We did a series of sun studies, winter solstice, summer solstice, equinox, and various times during those days of the year. And so this is a direct response of those sun studies that we did. Here's the building right in the center, as it's located along 5th Street. Parking, below grade parking, and then this is the commercial space at the ground level. There'll be some landscaping in that space. There's bicycle parking in that space. Behind it and towards the alley are service-oriented, required spaces. There's a transformer area. There's mechanical space. There's electrical space. There's also a bathroom back there with a shower and a toilet and a sink for folks that may be working in the commercial space that may have ridden from a long distance and need to take a shower before they go to work. There's a bicycle repair shop back there. There's a number of additional community amenities back there for both people that live there and people that work on site. The unit configuration, and what we did was we took and you can see it on the image on the right. We took what is typically a series of walkways that connect units above the ground level, and we've done something a little different with the walkways. We've pulled them away from the building so as to provide some additional privacy for people that live in the units, and you can see they kind of bridge across into the units, so there's a little more privacy, and they vary in their configuration, so there's a nice kind of play of light. And actually, there's a way of visually connecting, if you were living there, maybe somebody above you or somebody below you as you're walking through the space. The other thing that we're looking at, and we haven't really completely and totally landed on the right kind of combination, but we're looking at how to take the roof, which is the image on the far right, and do something a bit different with it than is normally done. We're looking at opportunities to heat water, preheat water for the boiler system. We're looking at outdoor public gardens. I think I've applied for a public garden space about 8 years ago and haven't gotten a nibble. So I know how difficult it is in the city to get a small plot and a garden space. So what we're trying to do here is look at possibilities and be a little more inventive, a little more creative about how we have and how we might be able to use that roof. There are no condensing units up here, which we're talking to the mechanical engineer about how to consolidate units, how to stack units, how to really sort of crush those units into a smaller space and to cover larger portions of the roof. Front elevation, again, you can see the relationship of this larger whole, the ground level, commercial, public space, the alley elevation, some sections through the building, a longitudinal section, and here's some images of what it might be like at the ground floor, deeper into the space, at night, doing something creative with lighting, with those bridges. It's a very sort of open feel to the building. Standing above on one of those bridges, looking out across the street, so you're really seeing other kinds of activities there as well. The potential of how that roof might evolve. I can talk, if you'd like, I can talk just very, very briefly about the community benefit to the Santa Monica Conservancy, which is a nonprofit organization, which I happen to be a board member, and the Santa Monica Conservancy acquired a shotgun house, which I think is now probably the only shotgun house left in the city. It's a small building. It's a small unit that was built the turn of the last century. It was located in Ocean Park. It's now about ready. It's being stored at the at a local lumber yard here. They've been gracious enough to allow us to put it there and sort of keep it there until we have the ability and the funds to actually move it to a location which is near 2nd Street and Main Street and Ocean Park, across the street from the small library there. We have the NMS, the developer of this project, has committed $50,000, which will put us right at the end of our capital campaign for the shotgun house and allow us to be able to bring it there, restore it, and then it'll be used as a community space, which will be a resource center for the community. There'll be a director who will be housed there. Educational programs can go on there. There'll be resource material there, and we think it's a great opportunity for the community, which we don't have that sort of facility now in the city, to learn about preservation and the opportunities that exist along with preservation. Thank you. And I'll be back in a minute if there's any questions.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Lastly, before we do Q&A, I'll just walk you through what a process looks like from start to finish for a development agreement project of this type. So we are in the early stages. This is the first public forum where we're discussing the project at the community meeting stage. The next step will be we'll have what's called a float up before the city's architectural review board. That's an early opportunity for the city ARB, who focus on design and materials, to weigh in on what the project looks like, the architecture, the design, and so forth. The next step will be a float up before the Planning Commission. That'll give the Planning Commission opportunity to discuss some of the same issues and also talk about some of the planning and land use issues implicated by the project, and think about the development agreement, community benefits, things of that sort, provide input to the applicant and to city staff. Next, we'll go to the Planning Commission for a formal hearing, and the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council, which is the ultimate decision maker on whether to approve the development agreement. And each one of these steps is an opportunity for the public to come, comment, and obviously listen and learn more about the project. And the last and final step after the development agreement is hopefully adopted is the ARB formal hearing, where the ARB will make a recommendation on design and color and materials. So we bookend, starting with design, ending with design, and assuming the approval is issued, building permits would be issued subsequently, and the project would begin construction. So with that, that's our presentation. We'd love to hear any questions, comments, thoughts, and input, which is why we do these meetings. So if you have a comment, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone. Why I'm showing the clicker on the microphone is beyond me. I got it. Come up to the microphone because it's a small room and it's a small group, and we can obviously hear you, but we want this projected onto city television, and you need to speak into the microphone to do that. Any takers? Okay. Well, if there's really no one who wants to make a comment or has a question, or Eric.
Could you comment on how you plan to market it to the downtown employers, the units?
Yeah, the thinking there, and this is currently in state of evolution, but the applicant would be willing to enter into a pre-lease period before a pre-lease-up period, where we'd look at marketing to downtown employers, notifying them about the development of the project and the units coming online, and letting folks know who work here that there's these opportunities to rent units. And basically just get out there, communicate, find different ways to reach those employers to hopefully encourage their workers to think about living here in Santa Monica. And with the explosion of Silicon Beach and the workforce that is active and robust, we think there's a lot of takers for folks who are working here who would be interested in living in a building like this. And obviously for every one of those people who choose to live here as opposed to West LA or the San Fernando Valley or where have you, we're doing a lot for sustainability, we're doing a lot to reduce traffic congestion, and it's a key TDM strategy that we want to implement with the project. Well, it's helpful because only for the city TV. I mean, I can certainly hear you, but, oh, even better. Yeah, good idea, Mike.
We'll bring it to you.
What are the rents going to be, and I'm very confused as to whether they're solar or not, because he mentioned those little wings or whatever they are, but then he mentioned electricity too. It's very confusing.
Okay. Let me, if we can have that, I'll go back to the roof plan. What you see, these two elements here, one is the stair tower to the roof, and the other two are the elevator tower to the roof. And across the entire front, what we're seeing now are something either photovoltaics for electricity or some opportunity to preheat water. We're actually finding that the PVs on the roof provide so little benefit in terms of electric producing energy that it's actually better. This is the front, and this is the PVs on the front, or where we can preheat water with that system is actually oftentimes a better system because it benefits the people that live there if their water is preheated and they're not having to either run water to get from cold to hot water, and their electric or gas bill will decrease because we've preheated the water through a natural source. Did that answer?
But the lights are still electric?
The lights are still electric, yes, yes. And in fact, if we probably covered the entire roof of this building with PVs and took away all the opportunity for community gardens, what you would produce with that amount of PV on this roof probably wouldn't generate enough energy to light all the common spaces, including the garage. So the benefit is really small. Once you really begin to understand how many PVs it really takes to make these things work, so there's a great benefit. It's sort of shocking.
What are the rents?
The rents, I'll turn that back over.
Yeah. So the building has two different types of units. 48 of the units are going to be market rate units. And I can't tell you what the rents of those will be because we don't know what the market will bear at the time that this project is under construction and opens up for leasing. But they will be whatever the market will bear. And we think one of the advantages of the project is it does have a balanced unit mix. There are a number of studios, which are obviously smaller and will be more affordable. And there are some larger units, too, which will be more expensive but have an opportunity for families to live there. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Those will not be cheap units because the market rate units for a brand new building in Santa Monica is not inexpensive. That is exactly one of the reasons why we think the project is exceptional because it is offering a very high level of affordability. 20% of the units and 12 units will be deed restricted for affordable households, and there's a range within that. 9 of the 12 units will be restricted to very low income households, households making 50% or less of the area median income. So that equates to folks making $25,000 a year, $30,000 a year or less. The applicant will be obligated to rent to folks of that income level. In addition, there will be 3 moderate units, large 3-bedroom units for families who are more like the workforce level. Those will be deed restricted rents as well at about 120% of the area median income. So there's a wide range. There'll be some very expensive units and there'll be some very, very, very affordable units, and we think we struck the right balance with the proposal. Any other questions? Okay, well, Michael, the applicant, myself, will be hanging around, so we can chat if any of you are... oh, I'm sorry, did you have another question?
Oh, I thought it was going to go till 9 o'clock.
Well, it only will to the extent someone keeps it going, and you don't want to hear from me. So at this point, I've said what, and Michael and I have done our fan dance. So we'd love to hear more from anyone in the audience, and we'll be here absolutely till 9 o'clock to entertain any questions or comments. But if there are none, then, you know, we could go to dinner, we could get a drink, but probably not. We don't want to sit here staring at one another. Okay. All right, well, we'll be around afterwards to chat if anyone would like to. Thank you all for coming.